know what's going on.
Stand down! Curry!
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat here. I'm really excited to talk about Trap House. I'm interested to know what's the best part on taking on action roles like this?
Um, the best part, yeah, I don't know. It's different with each film. You know, action is always different. Um, the film that I'm prepared for now, I think is the most challenging action-wise that of anything that I've ever done in, in my film career. But I think, with this film in particular, I think the challenge was that we were kind of learning on the job. You know, we didn't have this wasn't obviously not a big budget film, so we didn't have built-in rehearsal time, and I was also very limited on my schedule because at the time we were filming this, I was just booked on all kinds of other projects, and we really had been wanting to film this for years. So we found a window, and we just we went with it, but it was a hard press schedule. So I learned a lot of the stuff like on the day. And for me, it's kind of fun because it makes it really challenging. And at the end of the day, if you can pull it off, it's kind of gratifying. So I think it's probably that a lot of stuff I was learning on the day, and I think it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty proud of the final product. So I think that's it. It's kind of sitting back, reflecting on how stressed I was about it, and kind of at the end of the day, just feeling good about it, and then seeing the final product and feeling like pretty proud about it. So.
Did you have to go through any sort of DEA training in order to prepare for this role?
No, we had a, funny enough, we had a consultant, and he was also a friend of mine who was the initial idea of the film came from him. So he's a very good buddy of mine named Brent Wagner, and he works for the NSA, but he's worked all over law enforcement. He was a cop, he worked for DOD, he worked for federal law enforcement. Now he's at the NSA, he's in the military. So he was our consultant on the film. And so it just, bonus for me because I got to pick his brain a little bit more and make sure that this was right and that was right. And then we did have some firearm experts, who were, working with us on tactical movements and team movements on set with us. So that's what I mean. That's okay. That kind of stuff. It turns you into a little kid. You're a little kid playing army.
With a film like Trap House, there's big sequences like shootouts, explosions, all these things that
Yeah.
that catch the attention of the viewers. But how do you, as an actor, find the right balance between the action hero moments and the vulnerable moments, kind of like what we see with the father-son dynamic with you in this film?
Right. That's a good question because I'm still struggling with it. It's something I'm still kind of trying to figure out. Earlier in my career, I was just so against action. I just really didn't want to do action. And it was kind of hard for me to be that action hero, that guy, that leading man. And I really kind of I pushed back against it, and I wanted to dive in more into the vulnerability of characters. And at a certain point in my career, maybe just a few years ago, when I started getting more leading roles, I just thought I'm just going to have to let that go a little bit
Hmm.
because it might be something that's it's important to me, but also the film goers, the people who are watching your films, are possibly paying to see your films. They want to see a leading man. They want to see a leading man who's kicking ass. And so I had to kind of keep myself conscious of that. Sometimes I have to be just be a badass. Go with the line that I think might be a little cheesy. It might be, but go with it because people. It's at the end of the day, so especially with like popcorn films, people kind of expect that and they want it. And I know that and I get that because I'm a fan of those films. So I think that's it. I've tried to find a good balance, but at the end of the day, I still think because I desperately want to do more dramatic roles. I think that I'm always going to my tendency will always be to lean that way a little bit. And sometimes I was just going to need the right director just to kind of reel me back and tell me sometimes it's not time to be the vulnerable, loving guy. Right now, you need to be a badass.
Where does that pushback come from of these, not, a little pushback of these action roles? Because I know you said you wanted to lean more into dramatic roles. Is that more of just
Yeah.
a creative mindset that you want to branch out to? What's the reasoning behind kind of being hesitant maybe on some action roles early on?
The reason behind that earlier in my career is because I didn't want to get, that wasn't why I set out to be an actor.
Hmm.
And I thought once I get in that lane, I'm going to be stuck in that lane. And if I don't that get roles that require me to do some dramatic acting or some comedic acting or anything that's outside the box of action, that I'll
Hmm.
just be stuck in that rut. And that wasn't what I got into this business for. But then when I started, getting these action films, you get them, and again, you just got to kind of start, you got to start owning it a little bit, because people when they are watching action films, they want to see an action hero. So have those moments where you give some heart to the story, but you got to have some of those moments where you're just a badass. You're just kicking ass and taking names, because that's what action heroes do. So that's it. Just trying to find that balance.
What
Yeah.
was Bobby Cannavale like as a partner?
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love him.
It,
He was everything. No, I was going to say he was everything I was expecting, but he wasn't. He was a lot more, because I didn't expect Bobby to be so deep. He's an introspective dude. He's very thoughtful,
Mhm.
even a bit philosophical. I noticed when he first got to set, a lot of times he was just chilling somewhere reading. And I thought she's just because he's just such a stud. And I expected, for some reason, in my mind, he was just going to be walking around like charming people. But typically, like when we were filming, he was reading, he was to himself. Go over and have, like, he was enjoying the weather. It was nice when we were there filming. He was outside just kind of chilling by himself, or he was on the phone with his wife. And he's just like a really just a grounded dude, but just super talented, super interesting, and super like intelligent. So I enjoyed like having conversations with him. I felt like I kind of bonded with him pretty fast, because I respect him as an actor, but as I got to know him as a human being, I saw that he was just so much more than I even expected.
Uh,
And I learned a bit from him. I watched him and studied him, and he really is. I think he's an underrated actor, because I don't think he's had that role that he's really just. I mean, he's had successful roles, but I don't know if he's had that leading role that just made people look at Bobby and start putting him in that award conversation. You know, uh, but he's really really a talented person and a good human being. I love him.
I know you've mentioned that, trying to film this movie was difficult because your schedule's just been packed. You've been booked on so many things. And I know there's a lot of anticipation with a few other projects you have coming up. I'm sure you can't speak a lot on some of these, but I want to know kind of how's your training for Highlander going?
It's awesome.
How's all that?
Training. I've been training for months now. I think I started training. I started training before I even had the role. I had the conversation, and I knew that Chad wanted me, and he asked me if I'd go over to 8711 and start training.
Hmm.
Um, and I did. And then, a couple weeks later, contracts were signed, and I was on my way to London. And so I've been here since late August. So I've been training since then, with a couple weeks in California. So I've been training for quite a bit. And it's a grind. It's a grind. Not only have I, been doing all the training, the physical stuff, the stunt training, the sword fight training, the fight training, but Chad has also asked me to put on a few pounds. So I've been doing weight training on top of that as well. So it's been a grind. So this is the first time ever in my career that I've actually had to juggle films where I'm going from one film to the other. So mentally, it's a little stressful as well. But I am not complaining. These are like champagne problems. These are dream roles for me. And
When do you start filming?
we've already started filming Roadhouse,
Okay.
but on the days that I'm not filming on Roadhouse, I'm training for Highlander. We were supposed to be filming, we got pushed back a little bit. Henry, he had an injury, so it pushed us
Mhm.
back a bit. But we actually start filming on November 28th. Is when we'll
Oh,
start.
nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. With Roadhouse, I know you're kind of like you said, you're juggling in between. What's it like fighting Jake? How's that been?
Oh, well, we're not fighting. Yeah, I can't say that, we won't be fighting, but
Okay.
as of yet, we haven't been. Um, Without giving too much away, I think, a lot of our stuff has been just focused on our relationship.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to give anything anything away on that, but it's really great because Jake and I, we met before we started filming. We wanted to start flushing some stuff out with our relationship, what it is and what our backstory is. And so it's kind of been a lot of that because we had a script that we went into the film, but we found immediately that we both just wanted more out of it. We're getting a little bit greedy here. And
Hmm.
so kind of as the days have gone on, we've been trying to just flush that out and flush it out and flush it out as much as we can, because we want to make this a film that people, they're gonna love the action,
Hmm.
so it's not a spoiler, but there's a lot of bad dudes in this film. There's it's amplified. It's from the first film. There's a lot more going on, a lot more fighters, a lot more badasses. Um, but we really, to kind of make it like a film and get people kind of invested in it, we wanted to, it's got to be some, relationships and some backstories. And so we've really been, kind of trying to flesh that out. And working with Jake is not only a dream come true for me, but it's an education. Learning a lot from that dude. You can tell you had a conversation with him, being on set with him. You can tell he's been in the business for a minute. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. Dude can break down a script like that, and just start, kind of really diving into it and having some insight that that you didn't even notice, didn't even think of. So that's what I love about this business. This is what I'm in. This is why I always kind of gauge my career by who I'm working with. And Jake he's legit, man.
I'm curious. One last question for you, Ed, because like you say, you've been going back and forth between training for Highlander and Roadhouse. Has there any crossover between maybe some of your physical work that you're training for in Highlander that you've been able to maybe use or that's been helpful on Roadhouse? How's that been with the two going on at the same time?
Yeah, a little bit but they're so different. I probably with each experience, with wrestling and Highlander and some of the training I've done on my own and the fight film or the action films that I've done in the past, I'm sure that, each experience kind of gives me, you know, kind of a leg up to be able to go on films and do some of the stuff that they're asking of me. But these films are just so different. Like Highlander is so stylized. Highlander's it's a game like a game changer. It's like a real game changer. Whereas, obviously Roadhouse, and no spoiler because they really dove into it in the first film, but a lot of brawling, a
Hmm.
lot of MMA style fighting, and it's kind of, especially when, I think they got like 8 MMA, like professional MMA fighters on the film. And so, thankfully, I've just trained with a lot of guys. I've done a lot of that stuff. So I don't have to put as much work into that as I do into Highlander, which again, it's just so stylized and it's not like something anybody's seen before. So I don't really use anything that I'm doing on Roadhouse, from Highlander. I requested that they let me bring a sword over and make it a part of the story, but they, turned me down.
That's all right. Maybe the next one. But
Maybe,
Dave,
maybe Roadhouse 3, I'll have a sword.
exactly, yeah. Dave, thank you so much for your time. Such a pleasure meeting you. I'm excited for
Thanks,
people
man.
to see Trap House as well. It's a really fun and unexpected, deep,
Yeah.
emotional film, which I really
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, man. Yeah.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time. It's very much appreciated.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.